Have you ever felt like you're supposed to be everybody's friend?
Oh, yeah.
Like you have to be liked all the time?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's this other side of things, right?
Totally.
Like what about respect?
Yeah.
So today we're going to be looking into that whole thing.
Okay.
We're diving deep into this idea of liked versus respected.
Cool.
It features this conversation between Anna, who's a marketing professional, and David, who's a team manager.
Nice.
They're really getting into like the good and bad of being liked versus being respected.
That's a good question. Like, which is better?
Yeah, it's not about saying one is better, though.
Right.
They're looking at how the two qualities work together
Interesting.
and how sometimes they like bump up against each other.
I can see that.
So right away, David is really for likability.
Oh.
He's like, when people like you,
Hmm.
they want to work with you more.
Makes sense.
They're willing to go above and beyond.
Yeah, you want to help people you like.
Exactly.
Okay.
And all of that makes teams work better.
Yeah, for sure.
It just makes sense. Like we all want to be around people we enjoy.
I mean, yeah, nobody wants to work with a jerk.
Exactly.
Right.
But Anna then brings up this really good point.
Okay.
Just because people like you doesn't mean they're going to trust your decisions
Well, that's interesting.
or your abilities.
Yeah, like just because you're fun to be around
Right.
doesn't mean you're good at your job.
Exactly.
Mm.
She thinks that respect is like the core of a good team.
Okay, so she's more on the respect side.
Yeah. When your team respects you, they trust you.
That's huge.
They believe in your skills
Mm-hmm.
and they're more confident about the decisions you're making.
I can see that, yeah.
So then it's like, is this a chicken or the egg thing?
What do you mean?
David thinks being liked can then lead to respect.
Oh. So, like, if they like you first,
Yeah.
then they can learn to respect you too.
He thinks if you're showing empathy and kindness, that can make people trust you more over time.
So it's like a foundation.
Yeah, and once they trust you,
Then they'll start to respect you.
he compares it to building a house.
Okay.
Like ability is like the foundation.
Okay.
So you need that solid base first,
Right.
and then you can build respect on top of that.
Interesting.
But Anna says it's not that simple.
Oh, really?
She says that you really have to earn respect.
Guy.
It's not just about people having good feelings towards you.
So, like, what does she say you need to do?
She says it's about what you do consistently.
Uh-huh.
Things like being good at what you do.
Also being competent.
Yes, and being fair
Yeah.
and holding yourself to a high standard.
So you can't just be the fun guy.
Right.
You actually have to be good at your job, too.
And this isn't just about being the boss.
Right.
Think about people you've worked with.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever had a coworker who was like super friendly,
Yeah, like, everybody loved them.
but then when you needed help, they weren't the one you would go to?
Oh, yeah, I've totally worked with people like that.
So they were liked,
Hmm.
but not necessarily respected.
Oh.
And that gap between the two can be a real problem at work.
I could see how that would cause trouble.
In the video, they talk about how if you only focus on respect,
Oh, okay.
that can make you seem really distant
Yeah.
and like people can't approach you.
So nobody wants to talk to you.
Exactly. And that can really kill communication
Right.
and creativity on a team.
No one wants to share ideas with someone who's scary.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
But then on the other hand, if you're too worried about being liked,
What happens then?
you might not give people honest feedback.
Also, you're afraid to hurt their feelings.
Yeah, or have tough conversations. You're so worried about keeping everyone happy
Yeah.
that you end up hurting the team in the long run.
Because problems don't get fixed.
Right. So where does that leave us?
Yeah, is there like a perfect mix?
Is there a way to get that perfect balance of liked and respected?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The video says it's not about picking one or the other. It's about understanding how the two work together
Okay.
and knowing how to change things up depending on the situation.
So, like, it's not a competition.
Right.
It's more like a dance.
I like that.
So we shouldn't try to fit ourselves into some box.
Like the likable box or the respectable box.
Exactly. We need to be aware of how we come across
Yeah.
and change up how we act depending on who we're with and what's happening.
That sounds hard, though.
It is. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And in the video, they talk about how they've struggled with this themselves.
So even these experts have trouble with this
Yeah. David says he used to avoid giving people feedback.
because he didn't want to upset them.
Exactly.
Yeah. But sometimes you got to do the hard thing.
Right. Because not saying anything can actually make things worse in the long run.
So how do we get better at all this?
Yeah. Is there like a way to learn this balancing act?
Or are some people just good at this naturally?
Like, are we just stuck with whatever comes naturally to us?
I want to know what they say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
And it seems like the video actually has some good answers.
Oh, cool.
One of the biggest takeaways is that self-awareness is super important.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, like it's not enough to just mean well.
Right.
You have to understand how your actions are coming across to other people.
Oh, so, like, you could think you're being helpful,
Yeah.
but really you're annoying everyone.
Exactly. Like, you know that saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
I get that.
So how do we even get better at this whole self-awareness thing?
Right. Is it just like paying more attention?
Or is there something more to it?
I think it's definitely more than just like noticing stuff.
Okay.
It's about actually looking for feedback,
Interesting.
like asking people what they think.
And being open to what they tell you.
Yeah, even if it's not what you want to hear.
Oh, man. That sounds tough.
It can be. But I guess it's like getting a 360 review at work,
Oh, yeah.
but for your whole life.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
Right.
And like holding a mirror up to yourself. You
Yeah.
get to see how you're really coming across.
Not just how you see yourself.
Exactly.
I like that.
And Anna talks about how she used to think she was being direct,
Huh.
like super straightforward and clear.
Right.
But then she realized some people were seeing her as aggressive.
Oh, wow.
So like maybe even a little harsh.
That's got to be hard to hear.
I know, right?
But I guess it's good to know.
Yeah, it's like shining a light on those blind spots we all have.
You know those things we don't even realize about ourselves.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be real. Asking for feedback can be kind of scary.
Oh, yeah, totally.
What if people tell you things you don't want to hear?
Right. What do they say? You're doing everything wrong.
Yeah,
Feedback can be tough.
especially if it makes you question who you are.
Yeah. But remember, we're not trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's all about growing.
And sometimes growing means getting a little uncomfortable.
Exactly. The more open we are, the more we can learn about ourselves.
And then we can use that to get better at this whole balancing act.
Right. So the more you know about yourself,
The better you can adjust how you act.
to find that sweet spot
Mhm.
between being liked and being respected.
And the video talks about how this balance is going to look different
How so?
depending on the situation.
Makes sense.
Like how you act with your best friends is probably different
Yeah.
than how you act with your boss
For sure.
or even your family.
You have different relationships with different people.
So it's not about being two different people.
Mhm.
It's about realizing that different relationships have different rules.
I see.
Like with your closest friends,
Mhm.
being liked is probably more important.
Yeah, you just want to have fun and enjoy each other's company.
Exactly. It's about those shared experiences,
Right.
inside jokes,
Yeah.
and just feeling comfortable being yourself.
I get that.
But even with your friends, there's got to be some respect.
Oh, for sure.
David tells a story about a friend who always bailed on plans.
Oh, man. I hate when people do that.
And even though David liked this guy,
Mm.
he started to lose respect for him.
Because he wasn't reliable.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not cool.
It's a good example of how these two things
Liked and respected.
can exist together.
Yeah.
But when one of them starts to get way out of balance,
Mm-hmm.
the whole relationship can fall apart,
And at work, I think respect is even more important.
especially if you're in charge.
Oh, totally.
Like if you're leading a team,
Mm-hmm.
people need to trust your decisions.
Yeah.
They need to know you can handle the tough stuff.
Right. It's not about being everyone's best friend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about earning their respect through your actions.
So, like, by being fair
Yeah, and consistent.
and making good choices.
And sometimes that means you have to have hard conversations.
Ugh, I hate those.
I know, but sometimes they're necessary. You
Right.
have to set boundaries and hold people accountable.
Even if it makes you less popular.
Yeah, it's about choosing that long-term respect.
Over being liked in the moment.
And that all comes back to self-awareness.
Right.
The more you know about yourself and how your actions affect other people,
Yeah.
the better you can handle those tough situations.
So it's like having this internal compass
Oh, I like that.
that helps you decide when to be warm and empathetic and when to be more firm and authoritative.
Or, like you said, that sweet spot in between.
Exactly.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get this.
Me too.
Self-awareness helps you understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you can use that to find the right balance.
Between liked and respected.
But how do we know if we're doing it right?
Right. Is there like a checklist or something?
If there are any signs that we're hitting that sweet spot.
And luckily, Ann and David talk about that at the end of the video.
Oh, perfect. So their final thoughts are going to help us put all this into practice.
It's exactly. They have some really good advice for how to actually use this stuff in our lives.
Okay, so tell me, what did they say?
Well, one thing that really stood out to me was that it's like an ongoing thing.
Oh, okay.
It's not like you reach this point and boom, you're perfectly liked and respected.
Right.
It's something you're always working on.
So it's like any skill, you got to keep practicing.
Exactly. Practice makes perfect.
So how do we practice this?
What can we actually do to get better at this whole balance thing?
Yeah, like give me some tips.
Well, David says you should pay attention to how people react to you.
Okay.
Like, think about it. Are people comfortable coming to you with questions?
Hmm.
Do they want to talk to you about stuff?
Okay, so like if people seem hesitant to approach you,
Yeah, maybe you need to adjust something.
but what if they're just having a bad day?
Oh, that's true.
How do you know if it's you or if it's them?
That's where that self-awareness comes in.
Right.
And being honest with yourself.
So like really thinking about it.
Yeah. Anna says you should ask yourself,
Ugh.
how do I think I'm coming across?
Okay.
And how is that affecting my relationships?
So like with my friends, my family, at work,
Exactly. All of it.
it's like checking in with yourself.
Yeah, seeing how you're doing.
But what if you realize you're not doing so well?
Like, what if you're totally off balance?
Yeah, what if I'm being too harsh or too much of a pushover?
Well, the biggest thing they said was to be authentic.
Okay.
Like, don't try to be someone you're not.
So I shouldn't fake it?
No, be yourself, but just be mindful of how you're affecting other people.
So it's not about pretending to be super serious?
No, or always smiling.
Right, it's about being me.
But also respecting other people's feelings.
I can do that.
And sometimes, being liked and being respected might clash.
Oh, like you can't always do both.
Sometimes you have to make a tough decision that's not going to make everyone happy.
Like when you have to give someone critical feedback,
Ugh, yeah. Or when you have to set a boundary with a friend.
even though you know they might get mad.
Those are hard. But David says you have to remember that respect is built on trust. And doing the right thing, even if it's not the popular thing,
Yeah.
can actually make people trust you more in the long run
So sometimes you have to risk being disliked.
to earn that respect.
It's all about finding that balance.
Not going too far in one direction or the other.
This has been such a helpful conversation.
Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot.
We started with this simple question,
Liked or respected.
and now we've really gotten into how these two things,
Can affect our lives.
our relationships, our work,
It's amazing how much they matter.
and it all comes back to knowing yourself.
Understanding who you are and how you come across to others.
So as you go about your day, think about the people in your life.
Yeah.
Think about if you're focusing more on being liked or being respected.
And how is that affecting your relationships?
Are you getting the results you want?
And how can you find that balance that feels right for you?
It's something to think about and something to work on.
Keep practicing that dance.
You never know what amazing moves you might discover.